Hi.
So this morning we want to talk with you a little bit about the environment that's being created in Britain for the Brits and for foreigners because of the Brexit vote. I mean, there are a lot of pre-Article 50 ideas going in place, which are creating a very, very different environment for the people to live in. So I would say when we lived in London, it was quite an open environment, but since then, and since we've moved back, we've watched Britain close down quite a lot.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I mean, probably the biggest impacts we're seeing is from the comments that Prime Minister Theresa May has made about how she's going to negotiate the Article 50 withdrawal of the UK from the European Union.
Right.
And they're talking about this as going to be a hard Brexit, not a kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. European leaders have said then that there has to be, if Britain's going to insist on no freedom of movement, which is one of the 4 pillars of the European Union,
Yes.
then they lose all of the pillars of the European Union, so Britain's just out.
Right. I mean, and this is a really bizarre choice for Britain because Britain's biggest trading bloc is with the EU. Unsurprisingly, they're right there on their doorstep. So why don't they want to trade with Europe anymore? What's this? Where is this going? What kind of environment? How can we understand how they're presenting their country in isolation to the rest of the world? It seems a little bit warmongering to me.
It's certainly like saber rattling,
It's got that whole kind of rah rah rah. We're going to smash the oils.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff behind it, and it's totally ridiculous. I mean, they're going to need to trade with Europe, so why do they think they're not? I mean, obviously they are putting in place a kind of structure within their within the country, which leads to reducing foreigners, reducing trade, and isolating people. So, we're not going to get any information from the rest of the world. You're not going to be able to go and live in the rest of the world. And if you are, then what, are you being deported, basically? We're going to start deporting Brits as well.
I think that it's coming down to the fact that they still want to trade with the EU, but it's more important for them to say that we can't have Polish workers coming over, or Indian students or things like that. And that's really what it's boiled down to is that the Remain and Leave debate for the Leave campaign, it was a referendum on immigration, basically.
Well, I mean, the rest of the world looked at this as though it was a very democratic process, but I think once you see how the policies are being put in place and how Theresa May is shaping the country, who's shaping it with her, it doesn't look democratic at all. From my point of view, it just looks like this is the kind of sort of almost borderline fascists. Their populism is kind of tipped over. It's not just the will of the people now. It seems to be a sort of group-centric idea.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you say that academics without a UK passport aren't qualified to advise on government policy, you're taking the huge I would say kind of fascist swipe at the academic institutions about what's generally considered one of the professions about where there's a lot of movement between countries, a lot of exchange of ideas and things like that, and and academia, and from a international HR perspective, suddenly
Right.
there's huge opportunities of doing work is lost.
Yes, and I mean that's negative for the people who are there, because one of the great things about working and living abroad is opening your mind to other people's ideas, how they've done something, and it does really enhance the quality of your work. Because now you have more than one way of doing something. Clearly, Theresa May and Britain doesn't want one way. They want the proper way, the British way.
Right.
Which is just kind of a little embarrassing, because there is the rest of the world is not the rest of the world. There's actually people out there doing great work and designing things, building things, even armies. So I would be very careful how you, create a mindset in Britain that's kind of post-imperialism but not globalized in any way. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to be careful that this backlash against globalization, backlash against immigration isn't actually going to lead to destruction
hmm
of things. I mean, we're seeing the trade deals getting pulled down, and we're getting all kinds of stuff about how to improve it. But I'm not sure you're going to have the power to do that once you disengage from the international community. You don't get best friend status, and you don't get top priority, and nobody calls to see if you think that's okay.
hmm
Just go ahead and do what they think is right.
Right. And I think that it's really just short-sighted in the fact that everyone thinks, oh, we'll be fine without all these people. What about all
Hmm.
the foreign-born doctors that in the NHS that they want to actually send
Right.
away? And how are they going to do this? How are they going to start? They're going to start checking people's papers on the street.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where this sort of becomes impractical, and what it also becomes is more and more violent, because enforcement is sort of being handed to people with no enforcement skills whatsoever. You can't be having a pint in the pub and the guy next to you is telling you to get out of his country,
Right.
which is pretty much how enforcement is going to be seen. I don't have to put up with you anymore. I don't have to hold my tongue. You have to leave, which is pretty much what they're doing.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter whether you were born there or not. If you don't look white, then
Yeah, I mean, or you have an accent or a different
right,
kind of accent or something like
yeah,
that. You have to go carry around your passport to show people.
right. And even if you do, I mean, I've recommended that for going to the doctor in countries where you're not, or you might be a resident, but you're not from there, so that you can have that conversation with them. Because I had that conversation when I went back to live in England, that this doctor didn't want to treat me because she basically thought I was American and thought I wasn't entitled to treatment. So I'm, obviously concerned for Americans who visit who will be refused medical services if they get there, and obviously concerned that the NHS culture is so pervasively anti-immigration or anti-healing at that point, it would seem, that it was more important what nationality I was than whether or not I was sick.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to be in all kind of walks of life. Is your taxi driver going to say, "Well, you don't seem British to me, so I'm not going to pick you up,"
But
or or I'm just going to drive you to the police station because I think you should be deported. They're going to have little kind of vigilante squads and deportation forces
right,
coming on. I
yes,
mean,
the Red Guard, right?
yeah, exactly.
Was
It's
beating you up in the street.
right. It's and people always say, "Oh, it won't get to this," but people also said it won't get to the fact that there won't be freedom of movement and there won't be a hard Brexit and things like that. These are just really just
Right.
changed rapidly, and you see the impact already. Pounds plunging,
Mm.
and that may be good for some exporters, but not if they can't actually get their goods into foreign markets.
Well, right. I mean, and that's what's happening, isn't it? I mean, you were telling me about what's happening with the oil in the North Sea.
Right. It's like it's got nowhere to go. They can't. So it's like
Who in their right mind lets barrels of oil sit?
it's like
That's not how the world works, is it, Shirley?
no.
I have a lot of wind in Scotland.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just get
But
by
maybe
on
not
we'll just get by
enough.
on wind.
Eating a lot of beans.
All right, so we've got the crude humor out of the way.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you. It was getting very serious, I thought.
Yeah,
But it is a serious topic, obviously. We do take it seriously, otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it to
right.
try to help people who are there and people who are trying to interact with a Britain that's rapidly changing.
Right.
I mean, that's not the Britain of the 80s and 90s. This is a new Britain, maybe a Britain of the 20s or 30s, maybe 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to have more in common with a post-war or a pre-war Britain than it does with the modern Britain I kind of remember growing up in.
Right.
People are going to have to carry passports. Every foreigner is probably there to
Suspect.
yeah, like sort of pre-war ideas where the country is being riled against a certain nation
Right.
for obvious reasons. We all need to sort of help and support one another, but this is not the same situation unless they believe there's a war coming.
I don't know. I mean, there's
And
certainly going to be a trade war coming.
right. Well, you're already in that. I don't think throwing a hissy fit and withdrawing will make it work
Yes.
any better. Like people are not going to go, "Oh, Britain, I'm sorry, didn't mean to offend you."
I mean,
Okay.
all the countries, it's, the motto is open for business, best and brightest. Don't mean anything. I mean, look how quickly this became get out Johnny Foreigner.
Right.
And if you're on an international assignment, you should know that things can move very rapidly. I mean, Japanese banks are already looking to relocate to Frankfurt,
Mm.
and that's because they're told that they'll have to list foreign workers in the UK, which is their name and shame kind of tactic, which just seems absurd. I mean, you just want the best people for the job, and I mean, I know the number of fluent Japanese bankers in Britain's probably kind of low compared to what the needs of these banks
Yeah.
are. And
Exactly. I mean, and it's operational questions as well. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just because somebody else can take your job. Somebody else couldn't do that job, and that's
right,
wherein this problem comes. When you have international people and you only have national people, the levels are totally different, right? The understanding, the comprehension, the approaches, they're very, very different. And the skills required to work in an international environment, a global environment, are nothing like popularist skills that make you seem like, we're going to support our people and give money to the NHS, right?
right,
That doesn't work globally. Why does anyone else care?
right.
All right, thanks for telling me.
And it's also, important in the international assignment that, like in this Japanese bank example, you've got to have really great confidence in your company and its HR department, because now people are going to have to move to Frankfurt, middle of a school year,
Hmm.
maybe
Right.
have property or things like that, have to
Mm.
break leases if they are renting.
Right, it's going to cost a fortune to
Yeah,
move your entire operation to another country, especially when most of the people that you've been hiring as bankers are well qualified and who negotiate for the best package for themselves and their
right,
family.
right.
I mean, it's going to be a sort of very, very disruptive for the kids. Do they
Mhm.
stay in a British boarding school? But can you leave your children safely in Britain? You would have to ask yourself that if the climate in Britain is very anti-foreigner and you're obviously not British.
Right.
No, what are you going to do
And
then?
if your employer, you've got to worry about people jumping ship because they
Right,
don't want to move to Frankfurt, or they'll say, oh,
right,
well, if I'm going to have to move anyway, I'd rather get in New York, or,
right, absolutely.
try somebody else, different
Yeah,
market that
yeah,
is a little more welcoming to
right.
international workers. And that's,
Hmm. I'm reminded of an interesting quote which maybe outlines the difference between the English attitudes and Americans. It's Madeleine Albright, who used to be the
Secretary of State for Bill Clinton.
Secretary of State for Bill Clinton. She said in a very interesting documentary on immigration that the difference between England and America was when she was a refugee and came with her family to England. They said, "You're welcome. When are you going home?" And when she came to America, they said, "You're welcome. When are you becoming a citizen?" So I think that's just very prescient today, as insightful as her comments are. I think that a lot of people will be feeling like that. I came here to live. This is my home now. I work here. My family are here. And suddenly they're being told by everyone that they're not welcome. It's kind of sad, really.
Yeah. And you think about how many British people who like a multicultural, diverse society, but also like working. We met a lot of people in the hospitality industry, especially. Would go
Hmm.
work on cruise ships, go and then just stay in Germany and work for a whole summer and things like that.
Right.
That's all gone.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the city of London is a bit of a powerhouse financially around the world, but a lot of that is to do with access to the European markets, because obviously English is a language, a second language a lot of people learn, and is
Hmm.
so sort of, it's the lingua franca, for all the irony that
Yeah.
entails.
Well, we don't have an English phrase for
Yeah,
that.
we don't know, we had a French phrase for that.
Yeah.
uh,
I sort of je ne sais quoi.
so I mean, obviously, a lot of people when they're choosing when their kids are choosing, or they're helping their kids choose, do want to learn a second language, which second language we teach our children or encourage them. Then, if English is being the lingua franca, now German has to be, and I'm not so sure that there are as many German speakers. My Spanish speaking might be better. I think that's probably one of the most prolific
Yeah, probably. But,
languages
yeah.
nowadays. So I mean, yeah, it's a difficult situation, and if the world changes like that, it's a lot of work to relearn a whole new language if that's not your style, right?
Right. Yeah. It's there's a lot of retraining that's going to happen, and there's going to find out that there's just going to be a lot of gaps in the economy of where the skills are and things that have been filled quite
Right.
easily by people from other countries.
Yes, but people who want that life experience, and that's the saddest thing about the response of the sort of popular movement, is that they don't seem to think that it's a compliment in any way.
Right.
Like, if somebody says, "Oh, I love London and I love being in Britain and it's great to be here, I enjoy it, and I want to live here," why do you say, why do you,
Well,
what?
I've never been so offended in all my life.
No, so how could you offend me in this way? Like, really? Are you sure? Like, maybe no one's ever been nice to them.
Maybe.
Sort of begs the question, what's been happening?
What's being taught at Eton.
To keep the rabble down.
Yeah, exactly. And, yes.
Or rise the rabble when you feel like it.
Yes.
That kind of thing. Thanks, Boris.
Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah. Well, and this is a great irony because when we were in London, obviously we were running Doshibu from there, and we went to a meeting with the then Mayor Boris Johnson. One of the things that we discovered was that the rules were changing for students, language students who were coming in. Something that's 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. So obviously these policies have been set in motion, and we're sort of seeing the outcome now of what's been a sustained campaign to change the face of Britain back to I don't know what. I mean, I don't want to go back to the 50s. I want to live in 1950s Britain.
No, it was a bleak place.
Yeah, post-war is still rationing.
Look Back in Anger with Richard Burton.
Right.
It's not
Nobody was happy.
No.
Nah.
Nobody is, especially south of the river.
Right. The East End.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are a lot of changes, and I think it would be wise for Britain to change some of these policies and to stop being so xenophobic.
Yeah. I think, it's got to think about the economic impact, think about, the tremendous benefits that they've already had and that are going to go away if the EU. Think about how difficult it is to be totally renegotiate every single trade deal. And, I
don't know. Well, I suppose they would be busy.
I know. You've got Boris Johnson as your foreign secretary.
I
don't think you're getting a good deal. It gets stuck on the zip line again or something.
I mean, I think that there's a great deal of naivety within the nation about what the real consequences of this are, and it's not that you'll get a better life, it's actually you'll shot yourself in the foot a little bit. Because everything will be reduced, and that's not how the world works. I mean, everybody else is trying to open markets because then they can get more money and have better lives and get freedom of movement, and Britain's trying to close the market. What do you think will happen if, you can't have trade, you can't have a new market, there's nowhere new? I mean, I don't know if you're trying to stabilize your country, but sometimes this stability is very negative for you.
I think it's trying to exploit populism for power. That's what people are interested in.
Right.
And I think that, all the way back when Casablanca was made, and they had this quote, isolationism is no longer a practical policy. That was true then, in the 40s, it is really true now, so.
Right, and it's crazy. I mean, if you go and have a look at doshibu.tv, I've put on a few things. I think something you should think about is take a look at the internet industry as a whole, which will give you a much better understanding of how people are growing up and what they're thinking. They're not thinking post-war Britain. They're thinking my future based in global travel, ability to work anywhere. That's the future, and it's already here. So no matter how isolated from that you feel, there have to be ways for you to come on board with that idea and to enjoy it. Honestly, it's fun. You can have a lot more fun. Post-war Britain was not fun.
Nope. So, forward for fun.
Forward for fun, Britain. Stop that xenophobic stuff. You didn't make me proud.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in and watching this morning.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Bye.